Welcome to Andy and Ari on 3, your post-game edition or during game edition, as it were, because Texas A&M and Auburn aren't finished yet. Why let this incredibly crazy day of college football, and of course, USC and UCLA are still playing. You've got Colorado State and Fresno State going at it in a game that will affect the Mountain West title race. Ari, this has been incredible all day.
Can we just take the next hour for you to explain to me all the tiebreakers for all the conferences and who's going to be playing in the conference championship games? Because I think we need all 60 minutes for you to do that. I don't know. Yeah, I don't even know my ass from my elbow right now, Andy. Like, it's been, and we're sitting here watching this Auburn Texas A&M game, and if Texas A&M wins, then they might get to play Texas twice, or I don't have any idea what's going on here.
A&M doesn't clinch a berth in the SEC championship game with a win, but A&M has a very good chance of playing in the SEC championship game regardless of result next week. If they lose, or if they win this game, they could lose. But Peyton Thorne currently running for his life, now gaining yards. I mean, it's just this is unbelievable. So I'd love to tell you all the tiebreakers are, but first we need Auburn and Texas A&M to finish. Okay. We can tell you a few of those. We can't talk about the Mountain West ones yet because Colorado State's playing right now. The Big 12 ones are insane. There potentially could be 4 teams tied. And so there's 4 teams with 2 losses in Big 12 play right now. If all of them lose next week, do you know who? So, well, it's Arizona State, it's Iowa State, it's Colorado, and it's BYU. If all 4 of them lose next week, do you know who the conference title game might be between?
I have no idea.
Baylor and Texas Tech.
I was going to say, I don't even know who's in the Big 12 anymore.
Alabama lost 24-3 to Oklahoma tonight. 24-3. Not a single person. I am sure there were some people who bet on Alabama. Who bet on Oklahoma to cover against Alabama. Oklahoma was like a 13.5 point underdog. I am sure there were some people who bet on Oklahoma to cover against Alabama. I'm sure there's some people who bet the Oklahoma money line before this game. I don't think any of them in their wildest dreams thought Oklahoma would win 24-3.
Andy, I'm sure you've been seeing me on Twitter. I've been fired up today. Yes. I don't know if you want to do this right now or if you want to wait till later.
Well, Herb thinks you should do it right now. Well, Herb in the chat says the SEC is overrated AF.
I guess
Cody says SEC is mid. Change my mind. I don't think Ari, you're going to change his mind.
Okay, Andy. First of all, I don't even know if it's as big of a deal anymore because now it looks like the SEC kind of clearing itself out. That there might be a 2-bid league for the ACC. Indiana still seems like it can get in. Like, what happened with the SEC today kind of alleviates the thing that was frustrating. The thing that was frustrating to me coming into today was that we were all on our SEC high horse with the cluster of teams that were 6-2, propped up with wins against one another. And every single week that goes by, we get more context that the wins that are actually propping up these teams aren't that impressive to begin with, right? Like, Tennessee is going to go to the playoff this year, more likely than not. And their best, most hallmark moment of the year was beating a 9-3 team that just lost at Oklahoma 24-3. Like, that is the best or second best or third best resume, a top 3 resume in the SEC right now. And I just don't know how long we can go propping up teams with signature wins that we perceive as massive because of the brands of the teams without acknowledging that the teams that they're beating aren't very good this year. So that's my thing.
Can I ask a question, though? Can the class guy ask a question?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Is Minnesota good? Because it sure as hell like Penn State. It looked like Penn State had a problem with them today.
They did not lose.
Okay.
The games matter. The losses matter. The results matter. And if they don't, then why do I hate this. Why do we even play the game crap? But why are we keeping score and records then if they don't matter? At a certain point, the results of the games have to matter. That's what bothers me.
I'm just playing devil's advocate here, Ari. I'm with you.
If devil's advocate is college football team plays tough game and barely wins on the road, like that's like not insightful though. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not saying it to you, but that's what everybody says. And it's like teams play games all the time that aren't their most impressive outing, but winning and losing matters. And they won. And would I bet my life that Penn State would beat Georgia? Absolutely not. Would I bet my life that Penn State or Indiana would beat Tennessee? Absolutely not. That's not the point of this. The point of it is that we can't politic for a 5 or 6 bid league when there's been nothing in that league with the information that we do have, which is in the ledger, wins and losses, propping that up. And it's not going to happen anymore, thankfully. But like, are you sure that beating Alabama at home by 7 is the golden ticket that we thought it was a month ago? Like,
we're going to find out, because Tennessee's probably going to make the playoff now, because like Georgia this opens up some spots. Yeah.
It's like one of the bigger winners of today, but they've lost 2 games at home to 9-3 or 2 games this year to 9-3 teams. And I mean, like, are we okay with getting manhandled on the road by an Ole Miss team that's lost 3 times now? Like, Ole Miss is good. Like 3 days ago, I thought Ole Miss had a chance to win the national championship. So I'm not trying to pretend like I'm some sort of like know-it-all that knows. Like, I know what talent looks like. You know who I am. I'm the Stars Matter guy. These teams have good players. And if I had to bet money, or my thought would be like, would Ole Miss be the 2nd or 3rd best team in the Big Ten? I think that that's a rational thing to think. And I'm not saying that SEC fans are crazy for thinking that their conference is the best. Their conference has been the best for 2 decades. But my point is when you have a 12-team playoff, you can't just flood half of the playoff with teams in that conference unless there's merit to it. And I just don't see the merit right now. So, I mean, I don't think that that's an irrational
I don't think anybody's
thought.
arguing, but the thing is, like, you were going to come in guns blazing on this. You don't have to now. Nobody's going to come in arguing that Alabama should make it.
That's true. That's what I'm saying. Like, that's why I'm not even fired up about it, because it kind of took care of itself.
Now Memphis Perry says, "Go damn Big Orange, give Tennessee the respect it deserves," and he paid $10. So I'm going to say, Memphis Perry, thank you for your $10. What a win against UTEP!
Yes,
we're giving you the respect you deserve.
And like, you know, the thing that's crazy is that like throughout the year, Andy, you've been on the show with me. I have had my weeks of falling in love with teams in the SEC. Like, I fell in love with Ole Miss. I have been in and out of love with Tennessee.
We're going to penalty kicks in Auburn.
Is that what's next here?
Yeah, third OT, baby.
I really want A&M to win. I'll admit it, Andy, because I just want that game to be awesome next week.
That game's going to be awesome whether they win this game or lose this game, Ari.
I know, but I want it to be as juiced up as College Station could possibly be. Like, I want it to be if it's 1% worse if they lose today, I don't want it to be 1% worse. I want it to be its absolute best. But yeah, so that's my thing. Like, and we have some more clarity now, and we have teams that are, you know, might get in. Like, I do think that it's possible. I don't know that the Big 12 is a 2-league team. They can't even figure out who their champion is. But like, if the choice is between the loser of the ACC championship game and the 6th or 5th best team in the SEC, like, I might take the ACC champion now. Like, I don't know that I would have a week ago.
Well, the ACC champion's going, so you mean the
ACC championship loser. Yeah, you get what I'm saying. So,
that was probably the loser of the SMU Miami game, presuming they both win next week. Now, that's still a big if after what we saw today. But presuming they both win next week, the loser of the SMU Miami game might have been the biggest winner today. Tennessee probably was the biggest winner today.
Yeah, I guess like at the end of the show, or maybe now, we could just like go through the lists of winners or the biggest winners of the day. And I actually think, funny enough, that the biggest winner of the day is Indiana.
No, I was about to say it, and then I was like, well, should I say that when they got beat 38-15? Well, but yes, but yes, because this eliminates the argument of, is there some 2-loss SEC team that should get in over 11-1 Indiana? As long as Indiana beats Purdue, they're going to get in now.
Yeah. So like, I think that like Indiana coming into today was in a position where it had to prove itself, right? Like, and I think that people wanted to see Indiana go toe to toe with Ohio State on the road. And I think they had like 150 yards of offense, and they did not do that, right? So if you
Right.
think that definitively proves that Indiana is not good enough to be in the playoff, like I think I understand the rationale behind that, right? Like there's no getting around it. They got their ass kicked. The thing that bugs me and the thing that I wrote about, who some people think is stupid, but I thought it wasn't, is that if your bar for getting in or out is being as good as Ohio State a year after Kurt Signetti took over, that's just an unfair bar. Like there aren't a lot of teams, I think, in college football this year, especially half of the 4 SEC teams that we thought were going in that could do that. Like I don't know that I think Alabama would go into Ohio Stadium and win the game. You know, maybe they would have more than 150 yards of total offense, but that's one game. And there's a lot of teams that have won games that they wish they could have back. So Indiana played in the Big Ten. It's a 12-team field. The bar and the litmus test of whether or not you're a playoff team in this era is not being Ohio State or not being as good as Ohio State. That's what the 12-team thing is. The bar for getting into the 4-team field was being as good as Ohio State, but we changed the bar. So if we change the bar, then Indiana is the 10th or 11th best team in college football, and that's where they belong. And that's what people wanted.
We go to the 4th overtime in Auburn.
So we're doing like this 2-point conversion grab ass thing over here, and I'm trying to talk to you about a point, and I'm locked in over here, and I don't know what to do with myself. I don't know what to do with my hands, Andy.
It's okay. It's okay. That's the beauty of all this. Like this is so amazing. I guess I can look. Indiana did not need to prove that it's better than Ohio State. It has not gotten many chances to prove that it's better than a good team because it hasn't played a lot of good teams. But they've won all their games. So they're going to get a chance.
And like I just feel
thank
like that
Florida and Oklahoma for making this possible.
And I don't know, and maybe I'm nuts. I just don't know when the protocol became more important than the results of the games. The protocol it's
the second you had human beings picking who went where, which is always. But
protocol is what helps guide you when the records are
I don't know how to break this to you. Everybody wants their team, their tribe to win. They want to believe that their thing is the best and most powerful and greatest thing. So yes, SEC fans are going to continue arguing that 3-loss SEC teams are better than 1-loss Big Ten teams because that is human nature. Big Ten fans are going to argue that because Indiana has won 11, or well, they haven't won 11 yet, but if they beat Purdue, they've won 11 games. That makes them better than an SEC team that only won 9. The real answer is we don't know until they play. And guess what?
I want you to answer.
You're going to get to see some of them play. What's the question?
Well, I want you to know, like, are you on Team Ari here, or do you think that Indiana is not good enough?
No, they're going to get in. They're fine. They're fine. They're 11-1, or they'll be 11-1. I have no problem with Indiana getting in over a 9-3 Alabama. Auburn scores a 2-point conversion. Now A&M gets the match.
This is insanity. I mean, if Texas A&M loses a game on like European soccer rules right now, like I don't know what I'm going to do. Is this European soccer? Is this what we're watching?
It's essentially penalty kicks. Yeah, this is essentially penalty kicks.
Was that Cam Coleman? I can't see. It's on the iPad.
It was not. It was not. I believe it's Keandre Lambert-Smith.
I'm obsessed with Cam Coleman, and I'm also obsessed with the fact that the 3 best receivers in college football are freshmen.
Yeah, Cam Coleman had a good night tonight. But this is the Indiana thing. You don't have to worry about it now because Florida and Oklahoma took care of it for you.
Yeah.
And then the good thing about all of this, not just this argument, not just this year, even in the 14 playoff era when we had these arguments, a lot of times the regular season would still take care of it for us.
Mm-hmm.
Like with some weird, and last year it didn't with the Florida State thing. But this year and in past years, you've had these insane, oh boy, A&M's going to get cute.
Oh, grab ass. Oh, they're
going Wildcat. Oh. Philly special. They're going Philly special.
Oh my God.
He dropped it. It's over. Auburn wins.
Oh my God.
And they're storming the field at Auburn. Not prematurely like they did at Arizona State.
Oh my God.
It was drawn up perfectly. Just dropped it.
Holy shit! It worked, and he dropped it.
So, here are your scenarios for the SEC championship game. Are you ready? If Texas beats Texas A&M, your SEC championship game is Georgia-Texas. If Texas loses to Texas A&M, your SEC championship game is Georgia-Texas A&M. Buddy, we got some stakes on this one, baby.
Okay, so this actually worked out well for next week.
Well, this made it where there wasn't a scenario where A&M gets in, because there was a scenario where if A&M won today,
it made it a playoff game.
Yes, if A&M had won this game, there was a scenario where if LSU beat Oklahoma, A&M could have still gotten in, even if they lost to Texas. Now A&M cannot make the SEC championship game without beating Texas, and Texas cannot make the SEC championship game without beating Texas A&M. We got a playoff game.
So that actually, the thing I was afraid of all night was actually the opposite of what I wanted to have happen.
You should have just been using the website. Yeah.
I mean, so that was like the most bitter, awful way for Alabama or for A&M to lose, but in fact changes nothing about their path.
Oh, it changes it, because there was a possibility they could have lost next week and gotten in. Now they have to win.
They control their own destiny to win the SEC still.
Yes.
Next week is going to be insane. It is going to be
amazing.
It's
going to be amazing.
I honestly could not tell you the last time I was this excited to go watch a football game. I've never seen a game at Kyle Field. This is A&M in Texas after over a decade of waiting. And this is the epitome of what this sport's about.
That's exactly right. Now, what's crazy is A&M can win that game and they still might not make the playoff, but Texas still might. Because A&M could take loss number 4 in the SEC championship game after beating Texas.
Yeah. Dude, that hit him right in the face.
Oh, it could not have been any better. It was perfect.
Legitimately think I would have caught that. And I'm like not a very athletic person.
Well,
do you think I would have caught that?
Had some other good plays tonight. No, you definitely wouldn't have caught that. It would have bounced off your face mask. Yeah. I definitely would have not. I would not have caught that. I can tell you right now.
Oh. So I guess Hugh Freeze is employed next year.
Hugh Freeze is employed next year. The good tiebreaker site is back up. So let me double check my math. Auburn beat Texas A&M. Florida beat Ole Miss. LSU beat Vanderbilt. Missouri beat Mississippi State. Oklahoma beat Alabama, and Texas beat Kentucky. So we will say that Texas beats Texas A&M next week. Calculate standings. 500 internal server error. The answer was going to be Texas versus Georgia. And if A&M wins, A&M versus Georgia. I think Georgia's in. Now, we might have to wait till Tuesday afternoon from the SEC to announce that, but we'll see. I think the SEC will be a little more on the ball in the Big Ten in terms of announcing that. So if Georgia's actually in, I think they'll tell us.
I'm just like spinning up here, man. Like you want to try to get on task here and like,
all right, let's just talk draw about you something. Back in. Let's draw you back in. Let's talk about how Oklahoma beat Alabama, because it wasn't that Oklahoma threw the ball all over the Crimson Tide. It was that they forced a ton of turnovers and ran the ball really well. Mm-hmm. How about Jackson Arnold? How about our boy Jackson Arnold?
Yeah. I mean, I guess there is hope for him to be good now all of a sudden. Who would have seen that coming?
Other than everybody who ranked him a 5-star. It was pretty incredible. This is one of those, do you feel differently about Brent Venables after this games? And, well, we'll get to Kalen DeBoer in a second.
I don't think that I was out on him to begin with. So I don't think that I changed much. My thought about Brent Venables wasn't he needs to get fired and they need to find somebody else. I think that this is a much needed shot in the arm for a team that's had a very tough year. I think that seeing your young quarterback that was supposed to be the future of your program excel in a game like this and perform pretty well in his first year in choppy, but first year as a starter is very encouraging. And I think that the assignment for what needs to be done for Oklahoma in the offseason is unchanged by this, right? You need to go get an offensive line. You need to upgrade your roster, and you need to put yourself in a position to make your quarterback successful. So I don't know if this changes anything for you in terms of Jackson Arnold and what the plan should be for Oklahoma in terms of who they're building around. But if you go back and you remember what it was like during our video when we saw them lose to Texas in Dallas together, there was a lot of discussion about how it would be confusing to make this big decision about the quarterback. And if there isn't enough tape on Jackson Arnold, then how do you, get to the point where you feel like you're comfortable with that? And I think that we are getting into the space here where it seems pretty evident to me that they have their quarterback. Has he been great this year? Has he had? No. I mean, has he turned the ball over a lot? Yeah, he has. But at the same time, he hasn't been in college very long, and they gave up on him so fast. And I just thought it was bizarre when it happened. I got into a lot of hot water when it did. And he's too talented to give up on that soon. So put an offensive line around him, maybe get him a receiver that can, because Oklahoma's receivers are out all year. I mean, they don't have talent around him. I think if you do that, you have a pretty good recipe for winning games in this conference, especially now that, I don't know that we're all that certain about the futures of some of the teams that we were usually certain of.
Yeah. It is going to be really interesting to see who they hire as the OC, because that person, we're in a new era, Ari. That person may bring their own quarterback, or they may say, I want to build around Jackson Arnold. Or Brent Venables may say, I'm only hiring someone who will build around Jackson Arnold. Like, we don't know right now. All of that is going to get answered in the next couple of weeks. Because remember, the portal opens the day after the playoff bracket gets revealed. So that Monday, there's championship Saturday, playoff bracket reveal Sunday, portal opens. We'll learn a lot. We'll probably know the identity of Oklahoma's new offensive coordinator before that, because they probably want to have that person in place before National Signing Day, which is a week from Wednesday. This is going to be wild. This is going to be this next 2.5 weeks is going to be insane. All right, other side of that game. Kalen DeBoer has now lost 3 games in his first season at Alabama. 2 of those losses are like nothing you would have ever seen from a Nick Saban team. Nothing.
Yeah. So do I feel differently about Kalen DeBoer now than I did earlier in the year? Is that what the question is?
How do you feel about Kalen DeBoer was the question. It was very open-ended. Not multiple choice.
I think that it was going to be a tough year no matter what. And when you don't replace the legend and it just be okay. Like, I think that there was like this assumption that, Kalen DeBoer led a team to a national title the year before, that Alabama had a very talented and explosive roster, and that things were just going to be like business as usual. That's clearly not the case. Nick Saban is not the coach anymore. And it's just evident that Alabama just is not as explosive on both sides of the ball as it's been in the past. And you go through an entire 4-quarter game, and it felt like every single thing they were doing offensively was a struggle. Even Jalen Milroe, it's like somebody texted me in the middle of the game, what does Jalen Milroe do good definitively? And it's just like, do you answer the question? He's a good scrambler and is explosive. Like, I don't know. Like, what do you even respond to that?
Well, the answer is it depends on which game you're watching, because there's some games where he looks magic. And then there's games like today where nothing
What's the
works.
one thing that you can take out of Jalen Milroe's playbook and know that you're going to have excellent production in any
He's going to be able to run the ball. Yeah.
So, that is, a kind of a tough situation. So, in terms of a coach that you hire in 36 hours after your legendary coach goes, I think you had to understand and expect that there were going to be some growing pains, and you have to trust that he'll be able to recruit his way out of this. And that's the reality of it. So if they don't do that, then he's not going to be there very long. Alabama doesn't stand for this. This isn't what Alabama is or what it's become accustomed to. And I can't imagine that there are a lot of Alabama fans that are going to be going to bed tonight feeling pretty good about the way things have been going. Like they didn't score a touchdown in this game on the road against a team that literally couldn't block anybody all year. Like, I mean, it was a bad loss. I would venture to say this was the worst loss of the year.
This is the worst Alabama loss in a decade. Since Louisiana Monroe. This is that.
Was that 18 years ago?
It was 2007. I don't know. I'm not good at math, but it was a long time ago.
18. I just buzzed it.
Okay.
It's actually 17.
It's not 18. Yeah. All right. Bad at Math podcast. Sailor Joe has a question for us, and I do think we should break this down. Before we start breaking down more games, we should break this down. Which SEC teams would you consider to still be on the playoff bubble with tonight's upsets? So Georgia's in because they're playing the SEC championship game. Well, is Georgia in if they lose the SEC championship game? Because they would have 3 losses.
Is there a scenario to you where only one SEC team makes it? Let's just say Texas wins their next 2 games.
Like it's a 1-bid league? No.
So then how would it be possible for them not to make it?
That's true. They're probably in over Tennessee still, but and Tennessee's probably in at this point, we think.
Unless you reward the loser of the SEC championship game, even if they have more losses. But I don't know if that's what you do, especially if it's A&M.
Right. Texas feels pretty safe unless they lose to A&M. That's if Texas loses to A&M, they'll only be a 2-loss team, but the who have you beaten game is not kind to them. If they win and they go to the SEC championship game, I think they're in regardless, whether they win or not.
I think that if Indiana is unquestionably in now, I don't know that Texas loses the who have you beaten game to anybody because they're still only a 2-loss team. Like that's the thing that's interesting. I think like Texas kind of has some breathing room now. And I feel like Texas was kind of on high alert for team. I think if you were a Texas fan, you were rooting for Indiana to lose this morning because you don't want to get in debates with teams with better records that haven't also beaten anybody. But now that the situation is all cleared out, it's like Alabama is out definitively, right? Like there's no way Alabama's getting in.
They're out.
Tennessee is definitively in, probably. Georgia.
They got to beat Vanderbilt. Tennessee loses to Vanderbilt, they're out.
At the moment, I'm just going by at the moment because we're talking about
Tennessee would be in.
I think Tennessee is definitively in, and Georgia's definitively in, and Texas would be definitively in at the moment. And those are the only 3. So that would leave the remainder. I think Ole Miss is out, right?
Yep. I think they're out.
Alabama is out. South Carolina is out, even though they've been playing really well. And now you're left with A&M as a bubble team, but they probably can't be a bubble team because they either win their way in by winning the SEC or they're out.
Right. So, they have to play. They have to go 2-0 the next 2 weeks. They have to beat Texas and then beat Georgia in the SEC championship game. And then they would be in the SEC champ and they'd be a top 4 seed.
And so I think what you're looking at here, Andy, is that the SEC is a 3-bid league right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how they get to 4. And the 3 bids that they have instead of 4 now open up a secondary spot for a team like the loser of the ACC title game potentially.
Right. Yes.
And I think that the 4 Big Ten teams are definitively in right now. I think Ohio State and Oregon both clinched the playoff today.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that Penn State with a win next week will be in no matter what, and then Indiana will be safe. So that would be the 4 Big Ten teams. You'll have those 3 SEC teams in whatever order it turns out to be, and then you have 5 spots left over for Boise, the Big 12, and the ACC. And like that's the whole picture right there. And I haven't done Bubble Watch. I'm not sure if you've started bracketology yet, but I don't know.
I've started it, but I will tell you, Boise State's going to be 4. They're going to be the 4 seed. In my bracketology.
I got news for you, pal. Boise ain't in yet.
Well, no, they're not
watching around.
No, they're not in. But right now, if they keep winning, they're going to be the 4 seed. But I watched the game.
Fresno game.
Like Ashton Genty was hurt. They really, struggled with Wyoming in this game.
And Wyoming is bad this year.
Yeah, Wyoming's not good. So if Ashton Genty still put up great numbers, but he was hurt at the end of the game. If he's limited, there is a chance that they lose. And then
UNLV fans are sitting in front of their TV right now watching Fresno State beating Colorado State 14-7 in the second quarter.
Yeah.
If Colorado State loses today, then UNLV is going to Boise, and UNLV is playing well. So like Boise not playing that well with
yeah, they played a 5-point game in the first meeting.
I do think that you putting them in at the 4 is interesting because I'm not even sure they're the team that's going to get in from the G5. So that's going to be.
But if they go 12-1, they're going to be the 4. They're going to be ranked ahead of the Big 12 champ. I'm telling you that right now.
Yeah, well, I need you to help me with the Big 12 race because I have to do bubble watch, and I don't even know who's playing in the game next week. Is Arizona State for sure playing in it?
Nope, not for sure.
Is anybody for sure playing in it?
Nope. Nope, it is exactly what you wanted out of the Big 12. All right, let's talk about BYU and Arizona State right now. We had a premature field storming. Kenny Dillingham went berserk when he was told they were going to have to put time back on the clock. I don't know why he was so surprised. Sam Levitt throws the ball with like 4 seconds left. It didn't hang in the air for 4 seconds. Like, why was Kenny Dillingham surprised the clock didn't hit 0?
Yeah. Yeah, that was like, what, a 15-minute delay there at the end with like 3 seconds left?
We were on the field for a premature storming at Ole Miss, the Ole Miss-Georgia game. And
I don't know
it was much more orderly.
Anybody cleared the field as well as Cam Scadaboo did there at the end. You see him?
No, he's like a bouncer. It was awesome.
Yeah,
he really does everything.
Do a quick aside.
Yes.
Can you explain to me, anybody in plain English, why Arizona State doesn't wear these uniforms every week?
I can't. The Sparky helmet is the best. I mean, the Sparky logo is the best.
So clean. And I'll be honest, as an Arizona grad, I was jealous of their color scheme my entire college career. I think the maroon and gold is beautiful. Yeah,
why Sparky ever left the helmet, I will never know.
Like, why is Sparky not at midfield? Like, is it like some sort of insensitive, like 2023, like we can't have a devil as a mascot thing? Like, I don't understand what's going on here. Put it on the field.
Duke's got a devil as a mascot. Doesn't seem to bother them. So
yeah. The pitchfork thing is just not doing it for me. But yeah, no, Kenny Dillingham has his team playing really well, and it got dicey there because Arizona State, I think, jumped out to a 21-0 lead in this game, and we're in a, I guess if the Jake Retzlaff pass was 4 yards further, they might have actually lost in the most awful way. Has anybody in that you can remember lost after a premature field storming?
Yes, LSU or Kentucky to LSU when Nick Saban was coaching there. I believe it was 2003, maybe 2001. It happened. But it was Arizona State is the hottest team in the Big 12 now. Colorado lost to Kansas. Well, Kansas is probably the hottest team in the Big 12, but they are out of the title race. Yep. They spoiled it for Colorado, which loses most of the tiebreakers.
Tubby doesn't have to run 3.1 miles.
Nope, you sure don't. Yeah, I owe you a box of baseball card, or excuse me, lots of Panini football cards. I've got the Donruss Elite 2024 box that goes to Ari. By the way, we are sponsored by Panini, the greatest maker of sports cards in the world. Visit PaniniAmerica.net to collect all your favorite college and NFL stars. They've got NIL cards. They got DJ Lagway, Arch Manning. Grab yourself a box and start ripping some packs. PaniniAmerica.net, IORE. This box. I also have to pay $20 to the Rebuild Ryan Field Fund at Northwestern. So
it's not about the money either. People are like, why are you only doing $20? I don't care if it was $1. I just want your money in that pot.
Yeah. Into the $850 million pot. Yes. Colorado lost to Kansas, could not tackle Devin Neal. No one can tackle Devin Neal right now. Kansas has figured everything out. Now, Colorado.
You know what, Andy?
I was going to say, I thought when Colorado scored at the beginning of the third quarter, we were going to have a game. And then Kansas shut that down quick.
Yeah, well, the thing here was that Colorado just could not stop them. Point blank, period. Devin Neal was playing out of his mind. And every single time I looked up at the iPad, he was running down the sideline. And I think that I read a stat somewhere that Kansas ran for more yards in the first half tonight than Colorado has given up in any game all year. Like, it was just a complete shredding. And I think it just goes to show you too that like the Big 12 has been so weird all year that, kind of like this spot was dangerous for Colorado, because you don't just make it through the Big 12 unless you're up and away the best team without any weirdness happening. And Kansas is playing so good. Like, if you started the season 3 weeks ago, Kansas would be like a top 15 team in America right now.
This is the Kansas offense we expected to see all season. This is the one, if you were playing the video game preseason and fell in love,
this is what you wanted
with Devin Neal and Jalen Daniels. Like, this is what you thought you'd see in real life. And this was the video game in real life today.
Yeah. And it has been for the last 3 weeks, which is why we even made the bet to begin with. And, the thing that stinks about Colorado fans is that they're so transient right now, because a lot of them are just Deion fans. And they are so loud in our chat when they're winning, and they are just completely absent when they lose. And that's tough, because I actually feel like real Colorado fans, people who have been there for a long time, had a very had a successful season, and I feel good for them. And it's a shame that Colorado didn't get it done, because it's been such an awesome story. But at the same time too, there's no shortcuts in this game, and Deion cut the line pretty far. You know what I mean? Like, he did as much as you could possibly do in a 2-year period, and he gets my flowers for that. But making the playoff and winning every game that they needed to win in the Big 12 or any other conference for that matter is a really difficult thing to do. So, I don't know if that changes anything about who I'm going to vote for the Heisman or how I view Deion. I don't think there's any deep thought about this from me.
I don't think it changed my mind on Travis Hunter being the best player in the country. He still looked pretty freaking awesome today.
But like, I wrote a column 10 days ago saying I was wrong about Deion. I don't feel like I regret having written that. You know what I mean?
This is still a great year for Colorado, given what he took over. Yeah.
Going to the playoff would have been amazing to have that story in that field. But, at the same time too, any rational person who understands how this sport works is blown away by the build. And, I am blown away by the build. That doesn't change. I think they've had a really, really good 2-year run. In fact, Andy, I'm very encouraged by the notion that he's going to be there for a while. I'm very encouraged by the Julian Lewis flip and what he's going to do. And I hope that in 3 years, when you and I are live at 11 o'clock Central Time, in November, that we're talking about a Deion team. And I think that's within the realm of possibility, or frankly, if he keeps us up, probably the probability. So, congratulations to Colorado for a really good year. And if you are a Colorado fan who is in here and loud when they're winning and are here listening now when they're losing, congratulations to you for having a program and a product that you can be proud of, independent of just Deion Sanders. It's a fun program to watch, and I can't wait to see where they go.
Radically optimistic asks, can Colorado still make the conference title game? They lose most of the tiebreakers. I got to check that. I got to get back on the website and figure out if there are any scenarios where they can. Iowa State beating Utah closed a lot of things down. That game was very close. Utah missed a field goal right at the end that would have sent it to overtime, but that closed a lot of stuff down. A lot depends on the Kansas State Utah game. The Kansas State Iowa State game, Farmageddon next week. And then of course you have Arizona State playing Arizona. You've got Houston and BYU, but most of the scenarios are Arizona State, BYU, or Arizona State and Iowa State. So
yeah, Arizona State is basically in. They just can't have BYU lose to Houston, right? Like, I think that's the only way they're not.
I believe that's it. But
then again, this is a bad at math podcast, and Andy and I don't have our Texas Instrument graphing calculators to figure this out.
Well, the website's been crashing all night because everybody's freaking out and going to the website. All right. Let's talk some Wendy Saucy Nuggs, and then we're going to talk about the game I went to today that helped open up this playoff picture quite a bit more. Nuggs. Ari, your official welcome to On 3. We are presented by Wendy's, the Saucy Nuggs. That's our specialty item. We have every flavor of Saucy Nug.
Mm-hmm.
You've been training for this your entire life.
I was telling everybody before this, but my dad looked at me in the eyes when I was a kid, and he said, son, you can be anything you want to be. You just got to put your mind to it and work hard. And I said, I want to eat Wendy's on camera. So I made it. Here I am.
So I'm going to just get started.
Okay, why don't
here.
you
I'm going
get
to grab some
started?
garlic parm.
So, okay.
I like the garlic parm is a very like full, savory. The other, like the honey barbecue's got your sweet. Like this is your ultimate savory here. Buttery and savory.
Nothing better than washing it down with a crisp zero, too. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. A little Coke Zero action. No, that's the spicy buffalo. That's tremendous. I think that's kind of the perfect. That might be my favorite.
This is the Parmesan garlic, and this one I haven't tried yet. Which one?
It's a little bit hotter. Parmesan garlic.
Oh, this is spicy Parmesan
Yeah,
garlic.
yeah.
Okay.
It's pretty damn good. See, that's.
I keep changing my favorite. I think that's the point of this exercise, right?
Yes.
That's my favorite one. I could put down 32 ounces of Coke Zero and be like,
It will not.
where's the next 32
Yeah,
ounces
they
of
will-
Coke Zero?
Well, and
Yeah.
hey, free refills in the restaurant. So Wendy's new saucy nugs. Take the crispy and spicy nugs you love and turn them up to 11. Choose between flavors like buffalo, honey barbecue, garlic parm, or if you're a real heat seeker, try the spicy ghost pepper only on Wendy's signature spicy nugs. I dare you. That's 7 delicious ways to try the nugs you already love. Pick a flavor, grab some extra napkins, and prepare to nug. Have never nugged before. All right. So the sauciest game of the early window was the one I was in. I went to the Swamp to watch Florida Ole Miss. I saw Florida beat LSU last week and thought, okay, maybe if DJ Lagway is a little bit healthier, a little more mobile, they can possibly give Ole Miss a game. I did not expect this. I did not expect Florida to shut down Ole Miss's offense in the fourth quarter. And DJ Lagway was much more mobile than I thought he was going to be, was completing passes with Ole Miss defenders draped on him. Florida wins. Ole Miss is out. You know, because this is going on as we're watching Ohio State beat Indiana. And everybody who's like, oh, well, if Indiana gets blown out by Ohio State, then how are they going to compete with these two-loss SEC teams? All of a sudden, one two-loss SEC team was gone because Ole Miss is gone. But the other weird part, and I wrote this in a column, Ari, I said, imagine I had told a Florida fan after they lost to Texas A&M, I said, you know, Lane Kiffin's going to show up to the Swamp in a blue sport coat and sunglasses. And a few hours later, the Florida coach is going to give a press conference and everybody's going to be pumped up about Florida in 2025. The person in September would have been like, oh, is that Lane's introductory press conference in December as the new Florida coach? No, that was Billy Napier's press conference today after beating Lane Kiffin.
Yeah. So I feel like a big idiot. So, you know, I don't
How
know if
so?
this is like egg on. What do you mean, how so? I sat here in the seat 3 days ago and told people that the best ticket for the SEC to win the national title this year was Ole Miss, and they go out in Florida and lose.
I don't, but that roster could win a national title, but it also can lose to Kentucky and Florida.
That was just a bad look for me, and I'm just going to have to wear it, Andy. Like, and I appreciate you being a good partner here and trying to normalize the pick, but, you know, shit, man. Like, come on.
Well, somebody in the chat, Zach says, I don't even need to make fun of Ari for his Ole Miss pick. Everybody picked Ole Miss. They were a double-digit favorite.
I didn't just pick Ole Miss to win this game, Andy. I said if I had to bet on an SEC team to win the national title, I would pick Ole Miss. So, and I'm okay to wear it. It was a bad play on my part, and sorry about that, guys. But at the same time, what the hell was that? Like, honestly, what the hell was that? Like, what are we doing here?
Now,
like, Ole Miss is much better than that, whatever that was.
Florida's a lot better than it was, and when DJ Lagway's starting, Florida's a lot better still than that. So, Florida can compete with your fringe playoff teams now. They have improved that much, which I have never seen a team do this. Like, never once have I seen a coach who started the season on the hot seat, had a disastrous early season, like turn it all around, and suddenly you are pumped about what he's going to be the next year. Like, that never happens. You'll see coaches who start the season on the hot seat, and then they have a good full year. Like Neil Brown last year, started on the hot seat, won 9 games, kept his job. Billy Napier was done in late September. He was done. The big money people were out. Everybody was out. The AD was preparing for a coaching search. He was done. They never quit playing for him. They got better. He had to start the freshman at QB. Turns out the freshman at QB is spectacular. And now here they are wondering, instead of who's the new coach going to be, what recruits are they going to flip between now and National Signing Day? And then who are they going to get out of the portal? Because everybody's going to want to come play with DJ Lagway.
You know, I feel like too, like you can go into the off season and be excited, but we're going to know very soon after the portal opens whether we're on track here. You know what I mean?
Correct.
Like,
100%.
If money is used the right way and they get the right players in with DJ, they protect him, they get him a weapon or two. Those young running backs are so good. Like they have the pieces, I think, to put together a really good team. The thing that is difficult for me with Florida is that as we get more context of what the SEC is this year, the fall to where they were and where they had to climb back from becomes more inexcusable to me. So the good news is that we knew what was ailing Florida at the beginning of the year, which was they didn't do a good enough job in acquiring talent and situating this roster to compete at this level. But then on the other hand, you've seen a team fight for their coach. You've seen the emergence of a 5-star quarterback that Billy Napier took from Texas, and that guy's a star. And you can see the building blocks for the following year in a way in which you couldn't see them when we were in the swamp in September. So that to me is exciting. But on the other hand, it's like there's no reason why in year 3 it should have come to this when their schedule was daunting more so in logo and name than it actually was in terms of production and who they played. Like losing 5 games is just a tough look at Florida this far into a coaching tenure. Like there's no, like I know everyone's feeling good right now. I'm not trying to.
Oh, but we said at the beginning of the season, if he went 7-5, he's probably keeping his job. Guess what? He's probably going to go 7-5.
Yeah. No, and that's a hell of a way to close out the year. There's no question. And I think that it's good for optimism. But the thing that absolutely has to happen, Andy, and you know this better than me, is that the things that he failed at, which was bringing really good players in to improve the roster, simply cannot happen again. So I think that he's definitively proven that he can get a team to play for him and love him. And I think that's a big piece. But
now you need that same, you need to do what Ole Miss did.
And what is a coach in 2024 in charge of more than anything? Getting the roster to a place where it needs to be. So I think that when you have young pieces, that makes it easier to go into an off season, but you got to help those young pieces now.
Now, I also wrote a column saying this Ole Miss season was a failure. The process wasn't a failure. They did exactly what they should do, and they should try to do that again next year. But it was a failure. You had the roster to make the playoff. It's inexcusable that they lost to Kentucky and to Florida. Like that just should never have happened. The LSU game is probably inexcusable too. You only had to win one of those, and you lost all 3.
Well, here's the thought that I had about Ole Miss, because I saw what you wrote. Ole Miss did what it did, I think, in large part because it looked at this schedule and it didn't see Alabama. It saw 2 games, at LSU and against Georgia that were really daunting, and they did what they could because of a window, right? Mm-hmm. But in a world where the SEC is what it is right now, I don't know that you need to play the window game anymore. I think it's as simple as every year is your window if you're a team that's on the verge of doing something and you can do something special. The thing that sucks for Ole Miss is that they actually succeeded in putting together the roster, and they had more than an advantageous path to 10-2 this year. And it looked like they were finally going to do it, and then they didn't do it. And that, to me, is the failure. It's not what they did. It's how they failed after being successful in what they did to do the thing that only matters, which is win the games. And that is this time, last year at this time, or, 54 weeks ago when Ole Miss got its ass kicked against Georgia, and someone asked Lane Kiffin in the press conference after the game what needs to change for Ole Miss to compete in these games, he rightfully said they have to acquire talent better because they weren't in the same galaxy from a talent perspective. A year later, they beat the crap out of Georgia at home. So what is the only thing left to point to? I guess you could say Trey Harris's injury to a certain extent, but coaching. Like that's the only thing left because they did have the pieces this year and it still wasn't enough. And that's got to be the most frustrating thing at all for Ole Miss because they really did do the exact right thing you need to do it. And their coaching failed them.
So
Especially because they lost.
Yeah. Josh asked the question, is Notre Dame hosting a playoff game? Let's talk about Notre Dame because the Notre Dame Army game was really similar to the Notre Dame Navy game where Service Academy comes in undefeated. Notre Dame just annihilates them. And this was, we didn't get a lot right this week. We did predict this one correctly. Notre Dame was going to lean on them. They were going to out-talent them. If there were mistakes, it was going to doom Army quickly. That's exactly what happened.
So there was a play, and it was a non-important play in this game. And I was watching all of them at the same time. So, keep up here. But Bryson Daly pulled the ball and, his pitch man was wide open or like he had a ton of field, right?
Right.
And Bryson Daly made the right read. He pulled the ball. He ran to the edge and he pitched the ball to a running back who looked like he had open field. And if they were playing an AAC team, that might have been a 25 or 30-yard gain. This was in the second quarter. But then Notre Dame's linebacker, who was out of position and 5 yards, away from where he needed to be, ran the running back down and tackled him for a 2-yard gain. And that right there is all you need to know about that football game. Because even if Army does the right thing, physically they make the right read, they execute perfectly, you cannot overcome the simple fact that Notre Dame is bigger, stronger, and faster. And then that's why they run the option to begin with, to try to fool teams like this into wins. And Notre Dame is a legitimate playoff team that wasn't going to be fooled, has had some reps in a semi-similar, offense. That to me is it. That's all you really need to know. Like there are certain plays that stick out to me. It's like a beautiful mind thing. I don't know. But like the play that stuck out to me in the Ohio State Indiana game was the Caleb Downs punt return. It's like that guy wasn't even sprinting.
For me, it was every time Curtis Rourke dropped back to pass and 3 Buckeyes hit him.
Yeah. But there are certain plays that I think signify the entire game. And that was just a non-important play that probably most people watching were like, yeah, whatever, it was a 2-yard
No, but
game,
that definitely sums it up. You're exactly right. That is a play that would be very successful against American conference competition, and it didn't work against Notre Dame. And Notre Dame, okay, so to answer Josh's question about will Notre Dame host a playoff game? So I think you're going to have to be ranked 6 or higher in the committee rankings because you're going to have 2 lower ranked teams that jump up above and grab the auto bids and grab those top 4 seeds. So I think you're going to have to finish number 6. Do we think they will based on what we've seen? Because I don't think Penn State's going to drop that much. Indiana will drop. They're not going above Ohio State. So where do we think they're going to land in the rankings?
So Notre Dame was already 6 last week, and Indiana's going to fall. I think that you could.
So they're going to move up 1.
They're going to move up at least 1, and then of course you have, the Ohio State-Oregon game coming up potentially that could knock Ohio State to 6 and Notre Dame up into 5 if Ohio State were to lose. But it's funny because the NIU loss was a season-defining loss, but when you kind of look at everything that's gone on in the sport since that happened, it's almost like, okay, it's old news now. Notre Dame has won, what is that, 9 in a row now or 8 in a row? I think it's 8 in a row. 9? Yeah. So
this was game 11. So I think you're right. I think they're going to go to 5. I don't think they'll go above Penn State because Penn State lost to Ohio State and Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois. So I do think they'll be 5, which should make them safe as long as they beat USC. Like they should be feeling comfortable because that gives them 1 spot wiggle room if something weird happens and they have to drop.
And the thing
But-
with Notre Dame is if you're not going to play in a conference, you sign up for that understanding and knowing that your margin for error is less than everybody else's, especially considering the fact that you'll never play in a conference championship game. So, like, for me, they are the beneficiary of some chaos this year. And, like, just simply making it after losing that game is enough. Like, I don't care where there's, like, I don't think they get any benefit of, like,
hosting a home game,
seeding.
too.
Because
Because
even if they don't, it's like, that's on you. Like, they
but
they
that's
came
the
up
best
short.
they can do because they can't get a bye. The best they can do is host a home game. So yeah, I mean, it would be better to be to be the 5 seed, but they're probably not.
Well, the question is can they play their way into the 5 seed? Because that's all that really matters here.
I don't think so because I think Ohio State is bound for that if they lose, or Oregon's bound for that if they lose.
Well, I got news for you, and I don't know. We talked about Indiana, but Ohio State's going to be my 1 seed tomorrow.
Oh, you're going to predict they can beat Oregon? That's fine. They only lost to Oregon by 1 on the road, so I don't think that's an outrageous.
I've been kind of wanting to do this for a month, so but then the Nebraska game happened and the offensive line injury happened. But like I've been talking about Ohio State being the last of the super team, and I think they're a super team. So in that vein, I think it's really hard to beat the same team twice. And I think that Oregon is actually going to benefit from losing to Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game by achieving an easier path and falling to the 5 seed. Like that's how I think it's going to play out.
Yeah, I can see that. I don't think that's outrageous at all. Ohio State gives up the touchdown drive to Indiana at the beginning, gets stuffed near the goal line, and you're thinking, oh man, what's going to happen here? This is going to be a game. And then from that point forward, it was just Ohio State demonstrating its superior talent over and over and over and over again. And yes, a game against Oregon, again, this time in a neutral site, there's no reason to think it won't be a close game, a good game. And there's certainly no reason to think that Ohio State wouldn't win it.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's like with what Indiana had at stake going into that game, Andy, like obviously the reaction and even what I wrote was going to be about what that means for Indiana and whether it's, fair or whatever to, drop Indiana out of the playoff as a result of what happened there. But I think that also makes you lose focus on what Ohio State is this year. And that is a team that has 25 NFL draft picks playing in games. At whether they be in the starting lineup or in rotation, like they are literally the most talented team in college football. And if they're playing well, like that's literally what's supposed to happen. So,
Exactly.
I don't know that I learned anything I learned nothing other than Ohio State is really, really good.
Let's address Nita Beat in the chat who's trying to actually us. Andy and Ari, y'all forget the CFP agreed to Notre Dame getting the 5 seed and the home field advantage. So none of you mentioned that. Notre Dame's athletic director participated in the creation of this format. We talk about it all the time. We were just explaining what the deal is. The best Notre Dame can do is host a home game. The 5 seed is the best they can be.
What was the actually that we said that was? I don't even know what you're talking, like what she's talking about.
I have no idea. Like,
okay. Yeah,
everybody's so confused about like people just don't get the Notre Dame thing. There was a comment in the chat earlier that said, "Well, Notre Dame can't be the 5 seed because the 5 highest ranked champs get the top 5 seeds." No, the 4 highest ranked conference champs get the top 4 seeds. The 5 highest ranked conference champs get in, but the 5th highest ranked conference champ could be number 12, could be number 9, could be number 8. They don't get a bye. They don't get artificially moved up unless they're below 12 and they get moved up to 12. So again, huge awareness gap as to how all this works. The good thing about Ohio State is they just have to keep winning and they'll be the 1 seed.
Yeah. Yeah. So I thought that like Indiana unfortunately didn't play as well as I thought they could have. And I think Ohio State is really, really good. But of all the things that happened on Saturday, I thought that this was the least revealing game. Like I just thought, okay, I go into the following week kind of feeling like I did already.
Yeah,
I laid the 10. Don't forget, like I
know.
I laid the 11. So
I know. We listen. I thought Indiana would play them tougher than that. I was feeling very confident after the first series, and then it just fell apart. But that's what you want with Ohio State. So we talked about Ole Miss and their season being a failure because they spent all the money on this roster and it didn't get them to the playoff. Ohio State is still very much on track to get everything that they paid for.
Yep. And it was nice to see their pass rush show up when they needed it. I think that there's still some concern about the secondary because I did think that Indiana, had some chances to hit some deep shots there that didn't come through.
O-line played well.
O-line I thought fared pretty well. I do think that the most funny takeaway from this game is that Ohio State got its second top 5 win in 3 weeks, and Ohio State fans won't count this. This isn't something that changes their view, I think, of Ryan Day, even though maybe it should. They still have to it's Michigan week, Andy. And I know that it just, we're looking past that because Michigan hasn't been very good, but Ohio State's offensive line combined with Michigan's defense and defensive line and the fact that they just dropped 50. I know, if they're playing really well, I don't want to look past that because when it's a mental thing and people tighten up and Ohio State's just not been in the best place against this program, it's a rivalry. You're the one who says November brings weirdness. I don't know. We have to give it its due time this week. Okay,
we should.
Okay,
we should. We definitely will. I think Ohio State's going to win it, but we will give it.
Everybody
due time.
Does, but
we will give it proper respect. Yes, I agree. I'm with you
because honestly, if it's 10-10 at halftime, Andy, I'm not shocked by that.
Yeah. Joshua in the chat asks, what is the website to see what needs to happen for a team to make their conference championship game? So at the risk of helping crash it more, I feel bad for these folks because they've been crashing all night. It's bball.notnothing.net. And you go to football and there's Power 4 and you pick the ACC, Big 10, Big 12, or SEC. And you basically say what you think is going to happen in each game and it will tell you what that looks like. It will tell you who would play for the conference championship if all of those results happen. And it's very, very handy. And it tells you why. It tells you what tiebreaker each team would win. And in a lot of cases, you're getting the tiebreaker of best cumulative conference record of your conference opponents. So essentially who played the toughest conference schedule. That's where Georgia is getting most of its tiebreak wins now in the SEC. That's why they're in.
Hey, some score updates, Andy. UNLV is sitting pretty right now because Fresno State's beating Colorado State 28-7 at halftime. Ooh. And USC is beating UCLA early in the third quarter 9-3. Those are the games that are going on right now. But the Colorado State-Fresno game has a huge implication potentially on who makes it in the G5. So pay attention to that if you're so inclined.
Absolutely. So bloodbath on my PrizePicks play today.
Mine too. I
did not do well, but I had fun. If you're not playing PrizePicks, download the app now. Use the code STAPLES. Play $5, get $50 instantly. So Ryan Williams, I went for more than 23.5 longest reception. Got that. Omar Cooper did not have a good day for Indiana, so I did not get anything there. Cam Scatabo, I wanted him to catch some passes for a lot of yards. He did not. And then Will Howard, I had more than 13.5 rush yards. We talked about that all week and said, with the offensive line change, it's probably going to need some Will Howard with his feet. He actually did run for more than that, but then you back out sacks and he did not. So not my day, Ari.
Another L for me too, Andy, because that was my number one favorite PrizePicks play of the week.
Yeah.
Will Howard more than 13.5 rushing yards.
And he had it in the first quarter. And I was like, all right. And then they kept back. He kept, and they didn't have to run him very much the rest of the game. It was a lot more of Judkins and Travion Henderson. So it happens. It happens. If it had been a closer game, you would have probably seen Will Howard have to take off more. But it is what it is. I'm gonna throw some PrizePicks plays out on Sunday during the NFL game. So I'm gonna get back. I got faith.
Yeah. The only gambler that loses is the one that stops. So let's go.
All right, let's go to Austin, Texas, where it was close for a minute between Kentucky and Texas, but then the Longhorns mostly pulled away. But this is what you expected. Texas, the week before the Texas A&M game, they were not as sharp as they were when they destroyed Florida a few weeks ago. They did not struggle as much as they did against Arkansas last week. They were better. Now they're going into the game against the Aggies. If they win, they're in the SEC championship. If they lose, they're out, but they still might not be out of the playoff. Does that sound about right?
I think that sounds about right. I think it is amusing to me that we came into the weekend talking about how Texas hasn't played anybody yet and how a loss to A&M would have them out of the playoff potentially, or at least in a discussion that would make them uncomfortable, to becoming the SEC's like banner carrier. Like if Texas beats A&M and goes to the SEC championship game as a one-loss team and wins then the SEC champion, if it is Texas, at least emerges from that conference as a double-digit one-loss team and a legit SEC champ. Like this is a Big 12 team last year that everybody said couldn't handle the grind of the SEC schedule, and I think that Texas has probably handled it quite well, although they haven't played the grindiest games. So we'll see. The question that I have for you, Andy, is does going on the road and beating Texas A&M, even if it's by a point, change your perspective on this Longhorns team? Because I think we both were kind of on the same page of like, yeah, they're probably not going to win the SEC.
It helps because that environment's going to be crazy. Texas A&M is good. They may not be making the playoff, but they also, if they beat Texas and then beat Georgia, they would make the playoff. So, they're a 9-win team. That's a good win on the road, even if they're not making the playoff. So I definitely think that helps for instance, isn't that also Notre Dame's best win?
It is.
Okay. So I don't think there's that much difference between Texas and Notre Dame at that point. And then if Texas went and lost to Georgia again, it definitively means that Texas is not as good as Georgia. And
then I guess Georgia would be a 2-loss SEC champion and people would get excited about that.
Well, yeah. Yeah, and Georgia's probably still the SEC team that most people who would see Georgia in the playoff would be most afraid of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So with the A&M game, though, Texas A&M is a 9-3 team, but playing at home in that environment with what might be the loudest stadium in the history of the sport, how much better does that make A&M that day? Like, that's the thing. Like does A&M turn into an 11-1 team in that environment at home, or is it just a 9-3 team?
Yeah, all the external factors surrounding this game, there's so much more to this than even just another really good rivalry game. Like Michigan-Ohio State's a great rivalry game, but they didn't stop playing for 11 years because somebody went to another conference. And then the other team joined them in that conference by going behind their back to get into the conference and pissing them off. Like, there's so much here. There's so much hatred here. And there's so much big brother, little brother, liberal arts school, ag school, like all of that rolled into one in a game where the winner goes to the conference championship game. It is going to be spectacular. And yes, it is going to be a very tough environment for the road team.
Isn't it kind of like the hype from last year's Ohio State-Michigan game? Now, there's a little bit more depth to that one, I think, because
those two teams were better, probably, but
the Connor Stallions thing. But like in terms of like pure hatred, like I don't know if there's any other rivalry in college football that matches like the actual hatred between the people. Like I go to gymnastics every Sunday morning with my daughter, and I go with Texas fans. And those Texas fans will say things like, I'm not going to College Station because I would never want to go there. Like, like you might catch a disease just going, crossing the Brazos County line. Like,
exactly.
Like the Ryan Gosling, like gif of him holding the pizza and going, that's like how they feel. But like A&M feels like they're encroaching on their territory and that they're actually as good and that Texas hasn't done shit and all that. I mean, it's just like, it's very, and like the thing that I've noticed is that like Texas A&M people don't love Texas people, period. Like it's not just about football. It's just like they don't mesh real well, no. And it's like I'm here, so I see it. My wife went to A&M, so I've, have a lot of her friends who are A&M, grads as well. And I exist amongst these people, and, they are very, very passionate in not just their team, but their hatred for the other one. Like, I feel like Texas fans hate A&M fans more than they hate OU fans.
Oh, I think you're right about that. I feel like there's, dislike between Texas and Oklahoma fans, but there's like some grudging respect. There's no respect whatsoever between Texas and Texas A&M fans. None.
Yeah. None. And the fact that this game gets to be played in Kyle Field, I think that, like, right now, my opinion is that the best environment that I've ever seen in college football is a Penn State whiteout against Ohio State. That's my personal pantheon of number one. I think it's going to be number 2 on Sunday morning when I wake up. That's what I'm expecting.
Yeah. Yeah. Ricky says, Michigan fan here. We definitely hate Ohio. We know you hate Ohio State. We know.
We know, but
it's usually the same with these teams, but these teams haven't played since 2011 because they were pissing on each other in the boardroom. Like that's where this particular meeting makes it a little bit different. But I'm so excited. All right, let's go back to the Big Ten, though. We mentioned Penn State earlier, but I want to talk about Penn State, Minnesota, because James Franklin did something in this game that made me smile a little bit. Made me think, I actually kind of can't wait to watch Penn State in the playoff if this is who they're going to be. James Franklin, up 1, faked a punt on 4th down to ice the game. He then went for 4th down again twice to ice the game. He's playing to win now. And look, it was not their best game. There was very much in doubt. But I appreciate the way this game was called at the end, because that is how you're going to have to call it when you get to the playoff.
See, I take exception to you right now because last week you didn't love the play call that Dan Lanning had at the end where he did was it a fake field goal or whatever inside?
Only because I would have rather Dylan Gabriel done it. I don't know that I would have rather Drew Aller done this one.
You don't.
This was a pretty good
Penn
call.
State went for a fake punt up by 1 on the road.
Also, we got Drew Aller. We got Drew Aller doing it 2 more times on the drive, so we got to see all of it.
The fake punt was rather risky though, because they were up by 1 on the road with a few minutes left, and they were in their own side of the field.
It wasn't risky because clearly they had watched Minnesota's punt coverage unit the entire time, or punt return unit the entire time. And they knew that, like, if you watch the overhead view of that play, there was no way it was not working. So
but I'm just saying, like, the nuts to call it in that moment, like, because if you don't get it, you lose. You know what I mean? Like, that's where you're at. And I didn't love that PJ Fleck kicked a field goal on 4th and goal from inside the 10 on the previous possession. And I thought that the James Franklin quote after the game about wanting to win on our own terms, when asked about going for that fake punt, was almost, I'm sure it wasn't intentional, but it felt like a dig to me because.
Well, I texted you after the field goal. I was like, how do we feel about PJ kicking the field goal there?
Like, I didn't hate it because they were doing a pretty good job of. I didn't like it, but it didn't make me irate like some of them.
Well, if Penn State had done what Penn State usually does in those situations, and that would have been just punt the ball on 4th and 1, then PJ's field goal try would have been the right move. But James Franklin went against type. And I'm glad he did. It was great to see because, again, I want to see Penn State do this in the playoff.
Yeah.
Also, I thought Drew Aller played really well down the stretch.
Yeah, I thought he did too. And this wasn't the sexiest win, and it was the game that you threw out to show me that close games happen in the Big Ten. And it's just like, not the best win ever. I don't think that Penn State's winning the national title this year, but it's a 1-loss team, and its only loss was at home to Ohio State by a score. Like, it's.
Can I just tell you though that I'm glad that this is going the way it's going, where there's probably going to be a Big Ten team at the 5 seed, and there's probably going to be a Big Ten team at the 6 seed. and then Notre Dame at 6 or 7, a Big Ten team at 6 or 7, because we won't get an answer because it'll be a pretty small sample size, but we'll get what we've wanted to see all along. What do Big Ten fans say? Well, if the SEC teams had to come play in the cold weather, they wouldn't stand a chance. And the SEC fans are like, we don't give a crap where we play. We'll play on the moon. Well, now you're going to get your chance. We're going to get to see that, at least in a couple of instances, I think. And it's going to be outstanding.
Funny that, like, Tennessee, if it has to go north, will play a team from the Big Ten and be a 4-point favorite. Like, I know what's coming. So it'll be interesting
also,
to see.
as a Floridian, like, Tennessee's cold too. Like, it's all cold to me.
Yeah. Yeah, Knoxville gets pretty cold, doesn't it, at this time of year?
Yes, it gets very cold.
Yeah.
So it's all cold to me, north of Orlando.
Andy, the Thursday night football game between the Browns and the Steelers
in the snow, yes.
It was like a blizzard, and everyone's like, SEC is coming up there. It's like, okay, guys, like they're kids, and they're not all from the South, and they've played in the cold. Like, I think the cold thing is kind of overrated. And frankly speaking, I guess like maybe Penn State would fare better in a blizzard against some of those teams down there with the speed that they have.
Be a real whiteout.
But I actually my favorite thing too is when teams play each other. I think that I'm going to say something lame that annoys people, Andy, which happens from time to time. I actually like the domes because I don't love when elements get in the way of good football.
Oh, you're Pete Prisco. Oh,
yeah.
Ugh.
Like I like when the best teams in the country play in a dome. There's no elements
in a sterile carpeted environment.
Sterile carpeted environment where the wind isn't the reason the team loses, and you just get two teams playing football.
No,
like I hate
the weather.
Games in the rain.
Give me Mother Nature intervening.
Yeah, it just why should Mother Nature give a team an advantage? I don't know. I just like that's why I like the domes. So anyway, that's just my take on that. But I know people don't love that.
Let's talk.
Don't you think it's annoying to watch a game in the rain where it's like these teams are slipping and it's just
stood in the rain for 3.5 hours 2 weeks ago in Oxford. It was amazing. It was incredible.
I hate watching teams who want to do things have a hard time operating because the ball's wet.
They should operate better then. They should practice with a wet ball. They should have prepared for it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk a little ACC, because if you only look at the Miami Wake Forest score and didn't actually watch the game, you're like, Miami just rolled. No, Miami was in a game for 3 quarters, and then the defense exploded.
True.
Hold on, go back. Go Black 45. Ari likes domes because he hates being inconvenienced. That is absolutely perfect. That is exactly right. That is why he doesn't want anyone to be inconvenienced by snow or rain or sleet or hail.
When I get upset, I just go, why is nothing easy? That's my number one. Like, why can't nothing in my life just be easy?
I'm glad Jameis Winston doesn't think like you, Ari.
Well, Jameis Winston's a special guy.
They wouldn't have beaten the Steelers otherwise. All right, Wake Forest, Miami. Miami in a game with Wake Forest for 3 quarters, then the offense explodes, which is kind of what they had gotten into a rhythm of doing before they lost to Georgia Tech. If they're back to this, I think Miami, wins the ACC, goes in the play, and Miami in the playoff. I feel like more so than any other ACC team has a chance to do some damage.
Yeah, I have SMU ranked higher because SMU has a better resume, but I think Miami is probably better than SMU. So we're going to get to see it. They're going to play, I think. Yeah. But now, they still have this offense when clicking is a very hard thing to stop. They have Cam Ward, who I believe is going to New York for the Heisman Trophy final as a finalist. They have a lot of things to get excited about. Their defense scares the crap out of me. And it was kind of nice to see them just get back to just beating the crap out of somebody and not being in a position where they could lose to a team that's not very good.
Well, SMU is very good. Now, they've both got to win games next week. Miami has to beat Syracuse. That is not going to be an easy one. to go up to the Dome and win.
Terror
And then,
Dome.
and then SMU's got Cal. And if you didn't see Fernando Mendoza's post-game speech after Cal beat Stanford, it was on the ESPN broadcast. It's pretty spectacular. He was in his feelings. He loves his boys. He loves his squad. That's who SMU has to beat next week. SMU pummeled Virginia. Kevin Jennings was awesome. They had an easy one for what felt like the first time in a while.
Yeah, Kevin Jennings is somebody who hasn't been hopping up on the on-3 Heisman stuff much. I don't know if you've seen his name in the top 10, but I think I'm going to throw him in my top 10.
Oh, I think that's worthwhile. Yep.
He's been really good.
Rhett Lashley also got an extension this week, which I think you're going to see a lot of extensions announced for successful power conference coaches that are going to be, they're not getting massive raises or anything, but it's, hey, we like what you're doing here. We're going to give you another year on the deal because there's no jobs open. And we don't know if there are going to be any jobs that open up because nobody wants to fire anybody because the calendar, because revenue sharing is coming. There may be a couple power conference firings, but it's going to be pretty minimal. So we'll see what happens.
Rhett Lashley was a name that popped up like when Florida rumors were popping around too, wasn't he?
Yes, and he's a name that would pop up almost anywhere. But I think SMU, very happy with him. Obviously, he's happy there. There's not anything. I don't think anything's going to open that is going to intrigue him. But he's in. I hope, Ari, that Miami and SMU do win next week because I think a Miami SMU game with both of them 11-1 in Charlotte is going to be awesome. Now, there is a chance they both get in the playoff.
Mm-hmm.
It just depends on what happens everywhere else.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, SMU hasn't lost an ACC game, and if their first loss in the ACC is to Miami and an extra game that no one else has to play, then I think that would – I think SMU has been grossly underranked in the college football playoff rankings, and I don't know why. Like, you have Miami at 8 and they're at 13 or whatever they are.
Yeah,
it's like
they're
they
the
are
same.
not 5.
The same. They're essentially the same. You've got SMU with a better resume. I think it's pretty equal, but they're certainly not 5 spots apart.
Yeah. I mean, I think SMU has better wins than Miami. I mean, their hallmark win, I guess, is the same, but SMU, I think you could anyway, you could at least make the case.
Right. And BYU, which is a team SMU beat, still has a chance to win the Big 12 championship.
Yeah. And like SMU has a better loss, but it also, I think, losses are part of the resume, but holy crap. Did you guys see what happened to Pitt today? I mean, whew.
Yeah.
That was once a quality win in the ACC, and they lost 4 in a row now.
We were worried the wheels were going to fall off, and sure enough, the wheels fell off. I mean, that happens sometimes. Speaking of, did you see what happened to? While all of that nonsense was going on in the early window, while we were going crazy watching, Ohio State and Indiana and Florida and Ole Miss, the Illinois Rutgers game came down to Illinois thinking about attempting a 53-yard field goal. Greg Schiano calling a timeout to ice the kicker, and then Illinois scoring a touchdown because Brett Bielema was like, you know what? We probably can't make this kick. So we're just going to send the offense out.
That was the most Big Ten West shit I've ever seen in my entire life, and Rutgers was in the Big Ten East.
Honorary member.
Illinois was in the top 25 of the college football playoff rankings. I don't know how much this is going to matter now that the Big Ten seems pretty solidified in its CFP positioning, but getting that win and maintaining yet another ranked win for Penn State and some of the teams that are in that mix is kind of an important thing, but definitely a grab-ass finish if there was ever a grab-ass finish.
Elsewhere in the Big Ten, some of you in the chat this week told me I was going to be saying it's a curse on Saturday night. It's not a curse. Nebraska is bowl eligible after dominating Wisconsin. And I think our friend Big Cat had some stuff to say to his Barstool coworker, Will Compton. Will Compton, obviously former Nebraska player, played for a long time in the NFL. And Big Cat was saying that Wisconsin was going to win this game. I believe JJ Watt was all over Will saying that Wisconsin was going to win this game. Will had pretty much the perfect response to the haters, and I wish I had the natural talent to pull this off.
Oh, you're the better football team? Oh, you're going to beat Nebraska this year for like however many times in a row? You've beat us 12 last times in a row. What's that? You still got a streak going? Oh, you got something else to say, Big Cat? Nebraska's going bowling? Oh, are you sad, Cat?
That is spectacular. I wish I could fart on command like that. He farted on command 5 times, Ari. 5 times.
How do you fart on command?
How do you part? Well, I can build it up, but I don't know how you parcel it out in the tank to serve it up 5 times in a row.
How would
incredible.
you build it up? Can you suck air through your ass, Andy? Like, how do you do it?
I mean,
I know how to do
I'm
it.
not going to tell you my secrets, but
I know one way to do it. Domino's cheesy bread.
but not Saucy Nuggs. They will not make you fart like that. You eat all the Saucy Nuggs you want.
You play those Wendy's Saucy Nuggs commercials that we did when we were there, where you put the nugget sauce on my face, and I'm down like 25 pounds from that video, and I have been eating Saucy Nuggs during this journey. They're lean.
They're amazing. It's a great. It is my favorite thing to get at Wendy's, because I don't, as much as I love fries now, it's hard for me to eat fries because I know how many calories they are, and I know what they're going to do to me in terms of, making me hungry again pretty quick. But Nugs don't do that. Nugs hit, land,
Protein, baby.
Satisfy. Exactly.
So,
J-Wall, how can Andy and Ari backtrack on Texas not playing anybody? They ignore common opponents. FYI, Vandy, Florida, Michigan, Arkansas, UTSA, all bowl teams. Texas doesn't play FCS schools like the rest of the SEC. Oh, give it time, dude. You'll add some FCS schools to the schedule. Well, congratulations on your wins against Vandy, Florida, and Michigan, and Arkansas, and UTSA.
yeah, I think that the Texas we haven't played anybody complex can just go away now. Like,
We said they're going to make the playoff. I mean, I don't know what else you want. Like,
it's like I
just
feel like
go beat
Texas fans feel slighted for some reason. They're like in the top 3 of the CFP poll and firmly control their own path. Like, I don't know.
I think they want to be worshipped at all times, which is probably why the A&M fans don't like them.
It's just like, it's okay to just tell the truth. It doesn't mean that we hate Texas or that you suck. It's just they haven't played anybody good, really, and it's okay. They're the beneficiary of their schedule the same way that Indiana has been of theirs, and you're going to have good years where you have the schedule and you have an opportunity to do this. There are going to be years where you have to play Georgia, Alabama, and 4 other teams that are really good. It's hard, but it's just the way it is in the.
And here's the thing: Ole Miss had an easy schedule draw too, and they lost 3 games.
Yeah,
Texas didn't. Texas only lost 1.
And Texas was never ever, even after losing to Georgia, ranked at 13th. They've always been, I think, very fairly respected for what they are.
Yeah, and their defense is awesome. Their offense is up and down. Their defense is awesome. Yes.
I don't think that commenting on a schedule and just being factual about what's occurred means that we think they suck or anything. I actually don't think that there's been any Texas slander really on the podcast at all.
John, I do enjoy this one. Just put Florida in as the 12th seed so we can crush one more team's dreams. That is Florida at this point. They are the destroyer of dreams.
Is there a path for South Carolina at all?
Is there a path for Alabama that beats South Carolina, or a path for Ole Miss that beats South Carolina? Probably not. That's why there's probably not a path for South Carolina.
Roadblocks. Hate to say.
Yeah. Yep. So you lost to exactly the wrong teams.
Yeah.
So
tough break.
Ari, what else do we need to touch on today? I feel like we've taken a journey through the sport, and it has been spectacular. Oh, Vandy LSU. That one. I believe there were Fire Kelly chants early in the night in the LSU student section, but LSU beat Vanderbilt 24-17. This was a much needed piece of good news for LSU because they lost to Florida. Then Bryce Underwood flipped to Michigan. You were at the zoo when that happened, so I haven't got a chance to talk to you about that.
Yeah.
But
I was
that's
looking at the Tigers.
real bad news. Oh, yeah. But not like the gas station tiger that the governor brought in for the Alabama game, right?
No, it was there was a piece of glass in between. It was the wrong time to be at the zoo. I'll be honest. Like I thought Thursday night, usually is a pretty good time for us on our schedule to be there. And I saw the text come in and I was just like holding my daughter on my shoulders and she's like, "Look, Daddy, a giraffe." And I'm like, "Oh God."
You're like, "Look, honey, Bryce Underwood flipped to Michigan." This is the decade of the century.
Just doing my best to see my daughter once a week, and that had to happen. But like, I appreciate you. Yeah.
Ari is not a divorced dad on a visitation plan, by the way. That sentence just made it sound that way.
But
he just has to work a lot.
I didn't go to the zoo with her on a Thursday night, so we're doing our best to have some family time. And we stayed in a hotel, the Drover in Fort Worth. I don't know if you know what that is. It's like a cowboy.
I know what the Drover is in Omaha.
I don't know what it is in over. It is
whiskey ribeye, baby.
Yeah, just a little family sleepover. We wore matching pajamas and watched the Santa Claus and fell asleep. It was cute. But yeah, so that's where I was on Thursday, but we'll hopefully not miss the next one. That was a really important get. I don't know if this helps it at all. Like, they beat Vanderbilt. Congratulations. But like,
yeah, they just got to hold on. We're going to have to, it's not just LSU. We're going to be watching everybody for flips because
it's Flipsmas.
It is Merry Flipsmas. They moved signing day up 2 weeks. Like, it is the Wednesday of championship week. I don't know how prepared everybody is for that either. Wednesday of championship week is signing day. 5 days later, the transfer portal opens. Between then, there are conference championship games, and they announce who's in the playoff. just a little bit to talk about. A little teeny bit.
Well, I always do this at the end, Andy, but thanks so much for being here because it's discombobulated. Like, I just feel like we're just drinking water out of a fire hose when we start. And I know it's kind of like all over the place and it's stream of consciousness and stuff. We are more on task.
That's River's just sending, because you don't get your texts on your computer. I do. River is sending me texts. Oh, yeah. River, our producer River is sending me texts constantly like, move to this game. Move to this game. Now this. You're forgetting this. So if River didn't do that, everybody would just turn this off and be like, well, they forgot to talk about half the games.
Yeah, but I think we did a pretty good job of, the whole field here. And we're going to be writing tonight and podcasting every day this week. So
13-9 UCLA going into the fourth quarter, by the way.
Electric.
Beautiful uniform matchup. I was perusing the wearesc.com message boards the other night just to see where the USC folks were, how they were feeling after the Nebraska game. They've calmed down a little bit. They flipped an offensive lineman for North Carolina, so that they were in a good mood. I don't think they'll be in a good mood if they don't win this game. I think that will be another problem.
Yeah. This is kind of how I thought it would go. We're on UCLA tonight, but yeah.
Spurs. Andy looked up at that cheerleader. No, they weren't showing a cheerleader. This was a hit out of bounds where the USC return man was pushed out of bounds and then slammed into a UCLA player on the sideline who was just standing there, but it kind of knocked him out. I guess it knocked them both out. So, yeah, all right, this has been a spectacular night. I mean, we started the show in overtime with Auburn and Texas A&M. I think we would go 4 overtimes.
Yes, 4 overtimes.
Should have gone
3
5
overtimes and then a European grab ass overtime. I don't know if that counts as a full one or not.
No, there are 2 overtimes, then European grab ass overtime.
Yeah, European. So 2 overtimes and then 2 European grab ass overtimes.
Yeah. Oh, Go Black 45 reminds us Mac Brown says he's coming back to UNC and gets blown out. That's also true.
Mm-hmm.
Don't make, well, I guess you can make definitive declarations because remember 2 weeks ago when everybody was parsing Scott Strickland, the Florida athletic director's statement about Billy Napier, like, well, he didn't say he's definitely coming back in 2025. And I think Billy Napier definitively said he's coming back in 2025 today.
Yeah, that was a nice little statement. And I think that I'm going to be on high alert for Florida in the talent accumulation month of December while everybody is in the playoff.
Listen, you'll know the answer. You'll know whether you need to be excited or lackluster probably by New Year's Eve. Ari, I got to do bracketology. You got to do bubble watch. No one's going to agree with us, but we will be back on Sunday with bracketology and bubble watch videos. Last week we put those in the podcast feed. We're going to do that again this week, but we'll be talking bracketology and bubble watch at the On3 Sports YouTube channel. We'll also be talking about a few different teams as they head into the week. Probably do a little. Do we want to do a little early Ohio State, Michigan, and Texas A&M Texas preview?
I think we can do that.
I think we need to do that. Guys, it's been a pleasure. This has been an incredible Saturday of college football. Alabama lost 24-3 to Oklahoma. I don't even know if that's processed yet. Let's go fill out some brackets, sorry.